Sponsored by Lake Charles Memorial Health System. Covering the news for Southwest Louisiana. This is 7 News Sunrise.
It's Wednesday, September 11th. Good morning and welcome to 7 News Sunrise. Let's get a check of the weather and the latest on Francine from meteorologist Joseph Ank.
Absolutely, John. Now, we've been watching this pretty closely overnight, and we do have some more updates this morning. Now, fortunately, it didn't really gain too much strength yesterday, and it's still showing peak winds this morning around 90 miles per hour, which does put it as a high Category 1. But it did run into a little bit of dry air, which was giving it trouble trying to intensify any further overnight. As of 4 a.m. this morning, though, forecast tracks are leaning a little bit back further into maybe seeing Category 2 just before landfall, but it's also slowing down that approach slightly. Still looks like it'll be by the middle of the afternoon towards this evening, but tracks remain pretty locked in further off to the east and doesn't look like it'll be close enough to our area. Hurricane warnings have been dropped to tropical storm warnings for the entirety of the Cameron coastline, and locally, being on the west side of this system, we won't be feeling too many impacts, especially with it running into more trouble trying to gain strength as it goes on land. Could still see some pretty large gusts. If you're further off just southeast of our area, you'll easily run into tropical storm force winds, 40 to 60 miles per hour. But for most of us, it's going to be a good deal lower than that and may not break 40 for most areas unless you're, again, further southeast in parts of Cameron Parish. But throughout the day, it is still going to be rather windy and rainy. We do have some bands of rain slowly pushing north over the area, and you're going to see more of those as the system approaches. But it doesn't look like we'll be seeing too much as far as rainfall or any flooding concerns. Even storm surge near the coastline looks like it'll stay a little bit more limited for at least our area. And as the system does approach landfall, it looks like it'll weaken pretty rapidly once it actually starts moving over land due to both dealing with higher wind shear and some drier air pulling into the system as well. So at least not too many things to worry about locally here, though you will still want to be weather aware during the day. Coming up, I'll take a look at your forecast for the rest of the week, and of course, more details on what we're expecting this afternoon in just a few minutes.
There's been a change to the evacuation order in Cameron Parish. Hackberry is under a volunteer evacuation now, but the rest of the parish is still under a mandatory evacuation order. Now that we have a better idea of what Francine will do, Calcasieu emergency preparedness officials are scaling back their operation, but they're going to continue to monitor the storm.
We know how these things go. It could always change, but they feel very confident about this track. So where does that place us? We want to you finish this through until it has passed us.
Southwest Louisiana schools remain closed today. That's public, charter, and diocese schools, as well as the Bishop Nolan Episcopal Day School. Allen, Beauregard, and Jeff Davis parishes have all of their schools closed this morning as well. Cameron Parish schools closed for the rest of the week. Vernon Parish schools closed this morning and tomorrow. McNeese and Sewella, no class today. We've got the closures at KPLCTV.com. There's a voluntary evacuation order in place for residents of low-lying areas of Jeff Davis Parish. KPLC's Haley Jefferson reports.
Tuesday morning, Jeff Davis Parish Office of Emergency Preparedness issued a voluntary evacuation for low-lying areas of Jeff Davis Parish. During our visit to Lake Arthur, we spoke with several residents who say they are not concerned about Francine.
Honestly, I'm not too worried about it. We haven't really prepared for it or anything, but we've stayed through a few of them. So we're pretty prepared on what to expect, but since it's not even really directed towards us anymore, we're not that worried about it.
Most residents we spoke to say they'll be riding out Francine in their home.
I'm really not worried at all because it can't be worse than Rita was. I just bought my kids a bunch of snacks and some water and we're ready to go.
But some say their main concerns is the possible effects of Francine, like power outages.
The only thing that I'm worried about is the lights going out because I have a 5-year-old at home. But other than that, it's not our first hurricane down here.
Yes.
So we're staying this time.
Whether it's going to the grocery store or doing other things around the house, residents are still preparing for Francine.
We got all the yard work done yesterday, picked up everything that needed to be brought to the house and stuff like that. We got everything taken care of yesterday.
Some in Lake Arthur began stocking up on their food supplies. Carla Castillo spoke to residents there.
Sunday, Southwest Louisiana residents have been preparing for Francine, and although Southwest Louisiana may not be in its path, many are still getting prepared, with some residents in Lake Arthur still shopping for essential items.
Got my generator ready this morning after I got flown in from offshore and got gas, water, and necessities for the storm.
Many shelves in Lake Arthur were empty. Kershaw says that they don't want to repeat the mistakes made during Hurricane Laura.
Y'all need to go out there and prep because it could get very bad. Hurricane Laura was very bad, and even though it's not showing it's going to be that bad, but it still will and possibly could be that bad.
Hanks wants to tell people to take precautions and be prepared for anything that may occur.
The little things at your house, just use it conservatively. Just don't use too much because you never know how long we'll be out of power. Just conserve. I mean, it's the best thing.
7 News also spoke to other residents who were looking for essentials, and they said that due to the aftermath of Hurricane Laura, they're preparing for the worst but hoping for the best. Carla Castillo, 7 News.
Emergencies such as dangerous storms bring out the best in people sometimes, yet also the worst. Louisiana laws protect people against price gouging. At the governor's briefing, Attorney General Liz Murrill explained price gouging is wrong and says they will make sure no one is taking advantage of people during the storm.
If you suspect that someone is price gouging or has already been a victim while preparing for the storm, there's a few things that you can do. One, you can contact your local law enforcement. It can be a crime, so the first place you can go is to local law enforcement. You can also file a complaint at our website. The details matter, so when you do that, I would urge you to use as much detail as you can.
And for a link for the complaint, you can go to kplctv.com. State Police looking at the roads this morning as folks are trying to evacuate out of places in South Louisiana.
It's all hands on deck. We're kind of in that waiting stage. We have people here. If it doesn't hit us and it hits further east, we have troopers to assist with evacuees from the east side of the state. Yeah, so if you have to travel through the area, right now the roadways are open. That could change in an instant, so keep up with social media, the radio. 511la.org is a good website. It has all the DOTD closures, and we update it as soon as we have to shut down a roadway.
The White House has approved Governor Landry's emergency declaration request. He had asked for a state of emergency Monday and sent a letter to the president asking for federal money to pay for debris removal and direct help from the Coast Guard, the Civil Air Patrol, and the Corps of Engineers. Landry has also activated the Louisiana National Guard, saying he's deployed them already across coastal parishes. They have over 1 million meals and several million liters of water with them, along with 55,000 tarps and more.
87 boats, 387 high water vehicles, and over 50 helicopters to work what we think is the most probable mission post-storm, which would be search and rescue.
Other state agencies are on standby to help people before, during, and after the storm. Coming up, Homa may be in harm's way as Francine approaches. We'll show you how residents there are getting ready. It's 4:39.
Grab a Kinder Bueno and hit the road. Just one bite of crispy wafer and creamy hazelnut filling makes the journey worth savoring. Life gets bueno.
Oh, hey. With Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem. Always local, always free.
How far did Bernie Moreno go to cover his tracks? He shredded evidence, a fact he doesn't deny. Moreno was sued for stealing his employees' pay, money they earned working overtime. Moreno was even sued for firing a single mom. Faced with multiple lawsuits, Moreno shredded key evidence. And after he finally admitted it, a jury ordered him to pay nearly $500,000. We can't trust Bernie Moreno. Win Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Oh, hey, with Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem, always local, always free.
Time now for your first alert weather forecast.
Good morning, everybody. Here's the latest on Francine this morning. As of 4 o'clock, it still had elevated winds near 90 miles per hour and is holding its hurricane status overnight. Forecast cones still expected to move further east down the coastline, so it looks like it'll be staying well away from southwest Louisiana. However, they are still holding for it to hit Category 2 just before landfall. After actually moving closer to landfall by the late afternoon to evening hours, it'll be inhibited by factors including higher wind shear and dry air that'll have it rapidly weakening. And on the western side locally, Cameron Parish has been dropped down to a tropical storm warning, and our impact should stay minimal for the most part, with the majority of our winds below 40 miles per hour, but some larger gusts are still possible much further off to the southeast. Coming up, I'll take a look at your fourfold forecast with more details on Francine in just a few minutes.
And as Joseph said, Francine seems to be heading to the southeastern side of the state. The current track sends the storm into that area. Residents in the projected path are getting ready, and that includes Houma in Terrebonne Parish. Here's Maddie Kurth.
This is what is left of one of the sandbag sites here at the Civic Center in Houma. But as you may be able to see, the rain is starting to come in more frequent bands, and that's going to wash away some of the resources that these residents are really desperate for. But all morning we have seen neighbors helping neighbors to shore up their homes in this last-minute push to fight flooding in Terrebonne. And as Francine's track shifts, so do the deadlines down here on the bayou. Anyone living outside of our hurricane levee protection system must leave their homes 12 hours sooner than previously expected. Road gates are now going to close around 6 p.m. Tuesday night, with a curfew for that Zone 1 area in effect at 7 p.m. Parish President Jason Bajeron says a wider curfew for the entire parish is coming.
It's just our culture, how resilient we are and how much we put our faith in God. And so that's what we're doing, putting it in his hands. And again, we'll go pray, make sure we get our property locked down, and then go protect the family. That's the number one thing. You can't replace family. So let's make sure people are safe and get ready for a storm.
It's been a story of friends helping friends. Folks out here saying that is just the way things are done on the bayou.
That's just what we do. I don't know this lady we just met, but it's a really good, it's a good place to meet people, because you're going to find good people helping good people.
No, I have to be prepared. That's why I'm not waiting. I want to get it done. I have to work tomorrow, so I won't be home. So I want to make sure everything's hunkered down right.
When the road gates shutter Zone 1 away from the rest of the parish, an emergency shelter will open. Residents are asked to bring their own food and water for at least 3 days. Though most of the people that we've talked to here in Terrebonne Parish say their plan is to hunker down at home and ride out the storm together. Reporting in Terrebonne Parish, I'm Maddie Kurth. Back to
And next, another update from Joseph on Francine this Wednesday morning. It's 4:44.
I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local.
Always where?
Local.
Always what?
Free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on. Boom. I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local,
Always where?
local,
Always what?
free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on. Boom.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Joseph Eng.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Here's the latest on Francine to kick off our Wednesday. Now, the system did manage to hold its hurricane status overnight, but didn't strengthen too much more. As of 4 o'clock this morning, maximum wind speeds were still around 90 miles per hour, but strengthening definitely stayed rather slow. Now, part of that was because the system actually managed to pull in some of this drier air off to the west into its circulation yesterday evening, and that was making it difficult for it to strengthen further. However, as of the latest visit from the Hurricane Hunter Air Force planes earlier this morning, it does look like the eye wall is showing some slightly better organization, and it is expected to continue strengthening on its path for the little time that it has left. Forecast cones are still leaning into it being much further off to the east of our area, but a little bit slower on the approach. So you're still looking at the late afternoon to early evening for landfall now. But that's now also pushing it a little bit further east of Bayou Vermilion. This will end up a little bit closer to Homa, or even as well as we get to Fortune here, Port Fortune, a little bit further down the coastline. Now, for us locally, we're entirely out of the cone of uncertainty at this point, and that hurricane warning has been dropped down to a tropical storm warning for the entirety of Cameron Parish. It looks like we're going to be seeing pretty minimal effects here, as the system itself is going to face some more struggles as it approaches landfall, dealing with both stronger wind shear and some drier air that should have it weakening very rapidly as it moves onshore. In addition to that, those factors, especially that drier air, if it pulled into the circulation, could mean a lot less storm activity as well, particularly for the western side for us. And let's look at the winds we're expecting. Again, if you're further off southeast now, those estimates are still rather high, closer to 100 miles per hour right by the coastline, but that is not in our area. For us, you might see some tropical storm force winds for very southeastern portions of Cameron Parish, and maybe a few spots further east in general, but the majority of us are going to be seeing it closer to 20 to 40 miles per hour, so well below the tropical storm force threshold for the most part, and that is going to keep those impacts pretty minimal for our area. Not too many concerns over storm surge or flooding either. It looks like maybe close to 3 inches of rain is what we're likely to see, and you can kind of see that on Futurecast. We are dealing with a couple of bands moving through as we get through this morning into lunchtime. Those wind gusts will be a little bit closer to around 20 to maybe 30 miles per hour, picking up into the afternoon, more of the same. But as we get towards the evening and towards when the system is expected to make landfall, most of us are still only seeing 20 mile per hour gusts, maybe 30 if you're a little further off to the east here. And then as we go overnight, it's already quieting down and not seeing too much storm activity expected either. Again, that could be a factor with the wind pulling out of the north, drying us out a little bit as well. It should keep it pretty calm all the way into Thursday morning. And let's take a look at this on the bigger picture here for the affected areas by the storm. Again, this is going to be more in the Houma to Port Fortune area, and mostly models leaning into a little bit of back and forth this morning. Earlier models indicating it might stay as a Category 1 thanks to struggling on its strengthening journey here, but the most recent ones are still leading into a Cat 2 right at landfall, so certainly seeing some tropical storm force winds along the coast there further southeast and hurricane force winds for other areas on the eastern side of the storm, but then rapidly losing its strength as it continues further inland throughout the day, and the models have been pretty consistent with that as well, so it doesn't look like it's going to be able to persist with much of that wind speed. Now, as for us locally this morning, we are already seeing some bands out there, some steady rain for more areas in Beauregard to Vernon Parish, and there's likely to be a few of those moving through, but for the most part, it looks like it is going to be very minimal impacts here locally, so while you will want to do your best to make sure everything is secured from potentially higher wind gusts, and we are going to be dealing with at least some rain, we aren't going to be seeing major flooding concerns here, and it looks like the system will be moving out pretty quickly, letting us get back to our normal pattern by Thursday into Friday. Still, you want to be weather aware as we continue through this system and monitor its progress, and Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton will also be in a little bit later this morning to give you periodic updates throughout the day as needed.
Joseph, thanks. 4:52, and it has been 23 years since the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon forever changed the lives of Americans. Even here in southwest Louisiana, 2 Calcasieu Parish natives lost their lives on that day in 2001. Kevin Wayne Yoakum was 27 when he died. The LaGrange High graduate was serving in the Navy when a plane crashed into the Pentagon. Sulphur native Russ Keene was 33 and working in the World Trade Center on that day. Both men are remembered at the 9/11 Memorial on Bordeaux Drive here in Lake Charles. Additionally, the Shattuck Street overpass is named in memory of Yoakum, and Sulphur has its memorial in honor of Keene. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in the attacks on this day 23 years ago. Still ahead this morning, former President Trump and Vice President Harris finally face-to-face in the first presidential debate. Highlights of the night coming up. It's 4:53.
I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local,
Always where?
local,
Always what?
free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on. Boom. I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local,
Always where?
local,
Always what?
free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on. Boom.
Some fiery moments in Philadelphia last night between the two presidential candidates. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump faced off for the first and maybe only debate of this cycle. Karen Kafa has the highlights from Washington.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Vice President Kamala Harris talking up plans for the next 4 years.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
Former President Donald Trump slamming the White House agenda of the last 4.
The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy.
Tuesday night's presidential debate, hosted by ABC News in Philadelphia, may have been voters' only opportunity to see Harris and Trump side by side before Election Day.
Perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling.
Because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window.
Harris making an appeal especially to women voters on reproductive rights.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Trump repeating multiple debunked claims about migrants to hit the Biden-Harris administration on immigration policy.
Bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane.
Neither candidate has committed to a second debate, but neither has ruled it out. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
All right, at 4:57, let's go back to Joseph.
Well, John, we're prepping for the landfall of Hurricane Francine today, but it looks like impacts for southwest Louisiana are going to stay fairly minimal. We are going to catch some rain bands this morning, but that track is mostly taking it further east down the coastline, more towards the Homa-Port Fortune area. So locally, you can't expect it to windy and rainy, but most gusts should stay well below 40 to 60 miles per hour and more like 20 to 30 for the vast majority of us. Still, you want to stay weather aware and make sure outdoor objects are secured as we continue to monitor the system. We'll be right back after the break. You're watching 7 News Sunrise on KPLC.
I'm TV's John Stamos. I've been hired to play the great Jack Perry, the creator of Zeem. This one's a challenge.
The tagline is simple, and if John can remember that, he's got a shot. Always local, always free.
What's first?
Always local,
Always where?
local,
Always what?
free.
Zeem is America. There, I said it.
Zeem, always local, always free.
When I take a roll on, I take it head on. Boom.
Sponsored by Lake Charles Memorial Health System. Covering the news for Southwest Louisiana. This is 7 News Sunrise.
Good morning and welcome to 7 News Sunrise at 6 o'clock on this Wednesday, September 11th. I'm Rhonda Kitchens.
I'm John Bridges. Good morning. Let's check in with Joseph this morning with your first alert traffic and the latest on Francine.
Absolutely, John. Well, traffic this morning is a little bit quieter out there with people getting their storm prep finalized, mostly yesterday. But this morning, the system does look like it hasn't managed to gain too much strength overnight. Still has maximum winds around 90 miles per hour this morning. And the latest visit from the Hurricane Hunter Air Force planes did indicate the eye wall was showing some slightly better organization after really struggling with some drier air yesterday. Now, that's actually slowed down its intensification process. And while rapid intensification is something that is still on the table as it moves over warmer water, we've also pushed back the timeline for landfall. Models still expecting it to reach Cat 2 just before then, but much further east down the coastline. And those tracks are pretty much locked in at this point. So we're completely out of the cone of uncertainty here in southwest Louisiana. And those hurricane warnings by the coast of Cameron have been entirely downgraded to tropical storm warnings. Now, the system itself is going to face some other troubles for intensification, especially as it starts to move on land, namely stronger wind shear and some drier air, which both will likely have the system falling apart pretty quickly, losing strength, but also could mean very quiet conditions on our side of the storm. You can see wind forecasts now are pushing most of our area for just 20 to 40 mile per hour gusts, but as you get further off to the southeast, you could start experiencing some tropical storm level gusting out there, and of course that gets higher for areas where landfall is expected, closer to Homa, east of Bayou Vermilion, and more in Port Fortune as well. But for us locally, it is going to be a windy and rainy day, but impacts are going to be very limited, maybe around 3 inches of rain at the most for some spots. Not too many concerns over coastal flooding, so we shouldn't have too many factors there to consider with storm surge being on the western side of the system, and drier air being pulled into it could even keep storm activity to a minimum as well on our end. Coming up, I'll take a look at your forecast again for the rest of the details on Francine and the rest of the week in just a few minutes.
Hackberry residents are now under a voluntary evacuation order. The threat for that area was lowered with the shift in Francine's path.
The rest of Cameron Parish is still under a mandatory evacuation order. Emergency officials there say high winds, heavy rainfall, and flooded roads could still happen. Now that we have a better idea of where Francine is going, emergency officials here are scaling back.
But they're going to continue to monitor the situation.
We know how these things go. It could always change, but they feel very confident about this track. So where does that place us? We want to, you finish this through until it has passed us.
Schools across southwest Louisiana remain closed today. In Calcasieu Parish, that includes all public, charter, and private schools. Same story today in Allen, Beauregard, Jeff Davis, and Vernon parishes. Cameron Parish schools are closed for the rest of the week. McNeese and Sewella will be closed today. New overnight, the White House approving an emergency declaration requested by Governor Jeff Landry.
Governor says the federal assistance will be pivotal to save lives and property. He sent a letter to the president requesting aid for debris removal and emergency protective services. All right, let's take a break. It's 5:04. It is 5:06 now, and in Morgan City, businesses were already boarded up in sandbags placed by yesterday afternoon.
Drake R. Francois shows us how people there are getting ready.
Here in Morgan City, there are many people getting their final preps for Hurricane Francine. As you guys can see right here behind me, many people are getting gas and last-minute snacks to last them through the next few days.
I got all the vehicles gassed up. We got some extra water. We got the propane bottles filled so we get the gas grill going if we lose power. Got this generator rigged, ready to go, tested out. We're ready for the storm to get here. Hopefully it'll be a modern one and everybody be safe.
And preps are going on across St. Mary Parish. Here in Franklin, city officials closed the floodgates to prevent storm surge from flooding the town. Once the heavy rain starts, the city has designated a person to pump water on the other side of the gates, which will stop water from flooding the streets and getting into homes throughout the city.
Because it will protect everything south of the railroad tracks in Franklin, which would be the 9th Street, 7th Street, 6th Street area, as well as Pecan Acres. So it will protect everything south of the railroad tracks here in Franklin, which had been prone to much flooding in the past. In years past, we didn't have this type of control structure. Now we do.
Here in St. Mary Parish, there is a voluntary evacuation, but if conditions get worse, that can change. In Morgan City, I'm Drake R. Francois for News 15.
One of the hardest hit areas during hurricane season, Grand Isle, is expecting flooding. A voluntary evacuation was ordered. You can also see the people leaving yesterday. The mayor there says they're ready to get the storm started.
Well, we're ready. It's something different. It's coming faster, and we're concerned about the water coming up 7, 8, 10 feet, and maybe 4 to 7 at the beginning. So it's just jiggling back and forth. But we wish that it would just come on through quick, and instead of just come through and let us go to work.
While Hurricane Francine is expected to have little to no impact in our area, the threat of storms is always a good time to remember to practice generator safety.
And Chris Rosada has what you need to know to stay safe before and after a storm.
Well, during times like these, a generator like this could be your best friend, but not knowing how to properly use it could quite literally be the difference between life and death. While the storm may shut off your lights and AC for a little bit, cranking up the generator is an easy solution. But before you fire up one of these bad boys, you'll want to make sure you have one of these too.
Carbon monoxide is a tasteless, odorless gas. You don't know it's there until it's too late. So if you're going to use that type of combustion and generator to power your home or items in your home, you need to have a CO detector that works.
The first rule, never use a generator in or anywhere near your house.
Have it at least 20 feet away with the exhaust pointing away from your home. Don't allow that exhaust to get up under the eave of the home. It can enter your home that way. Make sure it's a well-ventilated area and keep it as far away from your home when in use.
Another common mistake is not making sure you have the right extension cords or other parts that are compatible with whatever specific generator you're using. You'll also want to make sure you have plenty of fuel. In previous storms, more people died after the storm because of issues caused by generators.
We all do the preparation. We prepare ourselves. We get ready for the big event. Once the storm passes, we have this complacency to feel like the danger is over. That's when the true danger really begins, and we need to take precaution.
So while we still have a little bit of time between now and when that storm is really set to kick in, make sure while you're out at the store getting all your other essential items, you get the right things like the right extension cords and gasoline, anything you're going to need to stay prepared.
And fortunately, we won't have to do that, hopefully, in this area of the state. 5:11 now. We have other news this morning. The woman whose 4-year-old child was found dead in the water behind the Vinton Welcome Center last July enters her plea in court.
Aaliyah Jack was indicted last week on 2 charges, second-degree murder and cruelty to a juvenile. She appeared in court via closed-circuit TV from the jail, entering a not guilty plea on the charges. Jack's other child, a 1-year-old boy, was found alive crawling on the shoulder of Interstate 10 and was rescued by a truck driver. A pretrial conference is scheduled for January 6th. Still to come on 7 News Sunrise, from hurricanes to wildfires, the U.S. is getting battered this morning.
We'll tell you which areas are feeling the most impact. It's 5:11.
How far did Bernie Moreno go to cover his tracks? He shredded evidence, a fact he doesn't deny. Moreno was sued for stealing his employees' pay, money they earned working overtime. Moreno was even sued for firing a single mom. Faced with multiple lawsuits, Moreno shredded key evidence. And after he finally admitted it, a jury ordered him to pay nearly $500,000. We can't trust Bernie Moreno. Win Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Oh, hey, with Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem, always local, always free.
How far did Bernie Moreno go to cover his tracks? He shredded evidence, a fact he doesn't deny. Moreno was sued for stealing his employees' pay, money they earned working overtime. Moreno was even sued for firing a single mom. Faced with multiple lawsuits, Moreno shredded key evidence. And after he finally admitted it, a jury ordered him to pay nearly $500,000. We can't trust Bernie Moreno. Win Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Time now for your first alert weather forecast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're taking a quick look at Francine's progress this morning. The system did manage to strengthen a little bit overnight and is sitting at about 90-mile-per-hour max winds this morning. Forecast tracks, though, still have it on track to head up much further southeast on the coastline, more in the Houma to Port Fortune area. So that means that hurricane warnings for Cameron coastline have been downgraded to tropical storm warnings, and most of our area should be seeing pretty minimal impacts for the day. System still expected to hit Category 2 just before landfall, but on the western side and this far away from it, we should only be seeing gusts largely below that 40 to 60 mile per hour tropical storm range, and not too many concerns over rain-induced flooding or storm surge either. Coming up, I'll take a look at the rest of your forecast as well as more details on Francine in just a few minutes.
Tens of thousands of people are under wildfire evacuation orders and warnings in the western U.S. today.
Officials say the U.S. now has more than 70 large active fires. Some are growing rapidly. Amy Kiley reports on the rising number of people and animals fleeing the fires.
Is an emergency evacuation.
Wildfires are forcing tens of thousands out of their homes in western states.
You gotta go, you gotta go.
In Orange County, California, the airport fire is expanding rapidly after igniting Monday.
40-foot flames, it moving, changing every 10 minutes.
The fire's been moving in a way that's hard to predict. About 1,400 area homes are under evacuation orders. People there are grabbing their pets and fleeing.
Everything that's important's in my car, and we're heading down the hill, and we just hope we're going to be unpacking and having a beer to that.
Two other blazes are so close, this video points toward all three from one spot. The line fire is behind 4,800 home evacuations in San Bernardino County. The bridge fire in Angeles National Forest is fewer than 30 miles from L.A. Meanwhile, in Nevada, humans aren't the only ones fleeing the Davis fire.
We are currently holding at about 25 horses here at the Equestrian Center.
At least 2 animal evacuation centers say they're full.
A couple of goats, and we just removed 30 chickens and ducks that we were also caring for.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Officials say other states are also facing wildfires: Arizona, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. We'll check in with Joseph next with the latest on Francine this morning.
And we'll find out what impacts, if any, the storm could have on southwest Louisiana. It's 5:17. You're watching 7 News Sunrise on KPLC.
Oh, hey, with Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem, always local, always free. Oh, hey, with Zeem, you can stream free local TV from all over the country. Zeem speaks for itself. It really doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson, but they promised me I could do this. Zeem, always local, always free.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Joseph Eng.
Good morning, Southwest Louisiana, and on this Wednesday, we're giving you the latest on Hurricane Francine, which did manage to keep its hurricane status overnight, if strengthening only by a small margin. For the most part, that process was slightly interrupted by drier air that it was pulling in from the west. You can see that pretty clearly here on a satellite, but nonetheless, Hurricane Hunter Air Force planes did investigate it earlier this morning and found that the eye wall was showing some slightly better organization. So it is on track to continue strengthening today, despite hardships that it might run into in the process. And forecast tracks are still largely aiming for the southeastern Louisiana coastline here and slowing down that approach slightly, but still expecting a Category 2 just before landfall, which models are putting at around the late afternoon to evening hours. This time further down the coast, now more east of Vermilion Bay, while still impacting it. It'll be more in the Houma to Port Fortune area. And that does put a pretty locked-in guidance path here, leaving the entirety of southwest Louisiana outside of the cone of uncertainty. Hurricane warnings for the coast and Cameron have been dropped down to tropical storm warnings, and there's not a whole lot of room for this to change at this point. While we will be prepared for some slightly larger impacts, it looks like we're going to be seeing pretty minimal effects in our area for the day. Those winds could certainly still reach tropical storm strength levels if you're further off to the southeast, maybe for some slight portions of Cameron itself. But the vast majority of us look like we'll be seeing gusts more in the 40 to 20 mile per hour range, so well below that threshold. And of course, the coast where it makes landfall could see gusts closer to 100 miles per hour, especially if it does in fact reach Category 2 before moving onshore. But then it will have to deal with some other issues. For us locally on Futurecast, you can see here that you might get some steady rain with outer bands early this morning and into lunchtime as they slowly drift by. But as we push into lunch, you're still only seeing gusts around 25, maybe 30 miles per hour. It is a little bit higher further off to the southeast, but let's head into this evening closer to when the system is expected to make landfall there, and we're still only looking at closer to maybe 30, maybe 40 miles per hour if you're all the way down to North Island or Abbeville, which is certainly on the more southeastern tip of areas that we'd be looking at locally. And by late tonight, it's already seeing winds drop back below 20 miles per hour, and more of a northern influence will be helping to dry things out a good bit as well. Let's take a look at that on the bigger picture, see where this system is going to be making landfall, at least on most models now. It looks like, again, more east of Vermilion Bay here, but still seeing some pretty heavy impacts and storm surge concerns there. Into this evening, you're definitely seeing tropical storm force winds by the coastline and closer to hurricane and almost Cat 2 winds if those models do manage to hold. However, the system is going to start running into trouble for its strengthening once it's making landfall and moving more onshore, because it will have to deal with several factors. One being stronger wind shear at the upper level, and two, it might start pulling in more of that drier air. So that is expected to have it rapidly weakening as it moves inland, and that could lead to a lot less storm activity on the western side, which would be what we'd be seeing, especially with more of a northern influence to the breeze there. So that could keep us from having to worry too much about rotating storms or higher winds, which is always a better thing to see here. So again, impacts not looking like the worst, at least locally. Satellite and radar now is again showing at least some lines of showers out there. So you can expect a bit of a steady rain this morning for parts of Beauregard and Vernon Parish. If you're heading out at all, you still want to be weather aware today and make sure you have those preparations in place, especially if we do get some stronger gusts out there. But in general, it does look like it's just going to be a mostly overcast and rainy day here, but it should be seeing mostly very limited impacts. Rain looks something closer to 3 inches at the most for areas, which could cause some flooding and pooling in a few areas. And near the coastline, there is going to be some increased tide at the very least, but storm surge looking like much less of a threat now, though we will continue to monitor throughout the day. And Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton will also be in a little bit earlier this morning, and he'll be giving you updates as needed, especially as we push into the afternoon and we monitor the system's landfall.
I need to have Wade pick up some donuts on the way to work. Thanks,
the donuts
Joseph.
are open.
Yes. Well, when it comes to tobacco use in teens, there's good news and bad.
E-cigarette use has declined, but there's a growing concern in another form of nicotine use. Here's Mandy Gaither.
It's a highly addictive substance that's especially dangerous to young people. Nicotine can be found in all tobacco products.
But it can also harm the developing adolescent brain and also prime the brain for addiction to other drugs. And so it's critically important that youth aren't exposed to these products.
Data from a newly released survey shows a nearly 25% drop in students reporting e-cigarette use the past year. That's about 500,000 fewer youth using the devices, bringing the rate down to the lowest it's been in a decade.
We still have 1.6 million kids who are using these products, but it's still a very important win.
But there's a growing concern about nicotine pouches, which are small and dissolvable and placed between the lip and gum. Experts say sales have been rising since 2016.
We're going to continue to monitor use and also do everything we can to make sure that we do not see any further rises with regard to these products in future years.
To help prevent tobacco use, the American Lung Association says parents should talk to children about the health dangers and the unpleasant physical aspects like bad breath, discolored teeth, and nails. Give them clear, consistent messages about the risks, making them aware of all the products this includes, and set a good example by not smoking or using tobacco in any form. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Attorney generals in 42 states have signed a letter to Congress demanding a Surgeon General warning on social media apps.
So far, Louisiana is not on that list of states. They say the algorithm-driven social media platforms threaten the safety of young adults and feed the mental health crisis. Several states are already taking legal action against several social media companies, but the attorney generals say more action needs to be done, like adding a warning label which requires congressional approval. Campbell's Soup wants to drop its soup from its name. The company says it's been around for 155 years, but leaders say there's more to Campbell's these days than just soup. Now it wants to be known as the Campbell's Company. Campbell's owns a variety of snacks and foods that include Goldfish, Pepperidge Farm, and Snyder's of Hanover. Shareholders will have the final say on whether the name change becomes official.
Someone has won the Mega Millions jackpot, an estimated $800 million. One ticket sold in Texas matched all the numbers in the drawing last night. The winner could walk away with the cash option of $404 million. This is only the third Mega Millions winner this year. The other jackpot winners were in March. There was a player from New Jersey who won over $1 billion. And in June, a player in Illinois won $550 million. 527, Joseph.
Well, John, here's just a quick recap of what we're looking at this morning. You're seeing some steady light rain for areas further north with the outermost bands of Francine here, and it does look like we will be seeing a little bit more of that for the day, but the forecast path is keeping it more off to the southeast, more in the Houma to west or east of Bayou Vermilion there, or portion as well. So it's not going to be seeing too much of an impact for southwest Louisiana. Fortunately, most winds should stay well below the 40 to 60 mile per hour tropical storm force range, although it will be windy and rainy. Being on the west side of the system, drier air may also contribute to less storm activity. We'll be right back after the break. You're watching 7 News Sunrise on KPLC.
Sponsored by Lake Charles Memorial Health System. Covering the news for Southwest Louisiana. This is 7 News Sunrise.
5:31 now on this Wednesday, September 11th. Good morning. I'm John Bridges.
And I'm Rhonda Kitchens. Meteorologist Josephine has your first alert forecast. Joseph?
Absolutely, Rhonda. And this morning, we're covering the progress of Hurricane Francine, as it did manage to keep that hurricane status overnight. Looking at us on the infrared satellite here, this might not scream better organization, but while it didn't gain too much strength, the Hurricane Hunter Air Force planes did find that the eye wall was slightly better organized this morning. So while it was choking on some dry air for a little bit yesterday evening, it does look like it is going to continue on that path, strengthening at least somewhat as it pushes for a landfall in more southeast Louisiana, just barely making it to Category 2 on some models a little bit later by this afternoon to evening. Now, most of those model tracks have been pretty consistent now and are keeping a consensus more east of Bayou Vermilion, leaving it more in the area of Homa to Port Fortune as well, but that's well out of our forecast area. It does look like the entirety of southwest Louisiana now out of the cone of uncertainty. That hurricane warning for Cameron has been dropped down to a tropical storm warning, and most of our impacts should stay fairly limited for the day here. We're looking at wind gusts for the majority of us around the 20 to 40 mile per hour range, which is below tropical storm force winds, but you could still run into a few of those if you are further off to the southeast, particularly for some portions of Cameron Parish there. But at any rate, it looks like our rain and storm surge risk will be a little bit more reduced as well. Satellite and radar showing a few bands passing over us now, not directly attached to Francine, but thrown off of it. That is providing some steady rain for a few spots further north. And we're in for a cloudy, rainy, and windy day in general. But again, that system looks like it will be gaining some strength before landfall, but then it runs into drier air and stronger wind shear, which should have it weakening pretty rapidly as it moves on shore. And being on its western side, we're not going to be seeing too many effects there, and we might even see just a little bit less in the way of rain and a storm potential as our wind eventually shifts further north and potentially dries things out a little bit. Coming up, I'll take a look at the rest of your forecast, but mostly more details on Francine for this afternoon in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Joseph. Things are looking up for residents in Hackberry this morning. They're now under a voluntary evacuation order instead of a mandatory one.
The rest of Cameron Parish is still under that mandatory evacuation order. The Office of Emergency Preparedness in Cameron says high winds, heavy rainfall, and flooded roads could still happen. Later this morning on Sunrise, we'll get a look at conditions from Rutherford Beach. Now that we have a better idea of what Francine will do, Calcasieu Parish emergency officials are scaling back their operations.
But they're going to continue to monitor the situation.
We know how these things go. It could always change, but they feel very confident about this track. So where does that place us? We want to you finish this through until it has passed us.
Schools across southwest Louisiana remain closed today in Calcasieu Parish. That includes all public schools, charter schools, Diocese of Lake Charles, and the Bishop Nolan Episcopal Day School. In Allen, Beauregard, and Jeff Davis parishes, all public schools are closed this morning as well. Cameron Parish schools are closed for the rest of the week. Vernon Parish schools closed this morning and tomorrow. Both McNeese and Suella will be closed today. For the latest closure information, go to kplctv.com or the 7 News mobile app. There's a voluntary evacuation order in place for residents in low-lying areas of Jeff Davis Parish.
KPLC's Haley Jefferson talked to some Lake Arthur residents about their preparations.
Tuesday morning, Jeff Davis Parish Office of Emergency Preparedness issued a voluntary evacuation for low-lying areas of Jeff Davis Parish. During our visit to Lake Arthur, we spoke with several residents who say they are not concerned about Francine.
Honestly, I'm not too worried about it. We haven't really prepared for it or anything, but we've stayed through a few of them. So we're pretty prepared on what to expect, but since it's not even really directed towards us anymore, we're not that worried about it.
Most residents we spoke to say they'll be riding out Francine in their home.
I'm really not worried at all because it can't be worse than Rita was. I just bought my kids a bunch of snacks and some water and we're ready to go.
But some say their main concerns is the possible effects of Francine, like power outages.
The only thing that I'm worried about is the lights going out because I have a 5-year-old at home, but other than that, it's not, not our first hurricane down here.
Yes.
So we're staying this time.
Whether it's going to the grocery store or doing other things around the house, residents are still preparing for Francine.
We got all the yard work done yesterday, picked up everything that needed to be brought to the house and stuff like that. We got everything taken care of yesterday.
Groceries and gas are already expensive, so the last thing residents need is someone raising prices as a storm approaches.
Louisiana laws protect people against price gouging. At the governor's briefing, Attorney General Liz Murrill said they will make sure no one is taking advantage of people during the storm by overpricing goods.
If you suspect that someone is price gouging or has already been a victim while preparing for the storm, there's a few things that you can do. One, you can contact your local law enforcement. It can be a crime, so the first place you can go is to local law enforcement. You can also file a complaint at our website. The details matter, so when you do that, I would urge you to use as much detail as you can.
To file a complaint, there's a link at kplctv.com. The White House has approved Governor Landry's emergency declaration request.
Governor had declared a state of emergency Monday. He sent a letter to President Biden asking for federal money to pay for debris removal and help from the Civil Air Patrol, the Corps of Engineers, and the Coast Guard. The governor also has activated the Louisiana National Guard, saying he's deployed them across coastal parishes. Major General Thomas Freelou says they have over 1 million meals and liters of water with them, along with 55,000 tarps and other items necessary in the aftermath of a storm.
87 boats, 387 high water vehicles, and over 50 helicopters to work what we think is the most probable mission post-storm, which would be search and rescue.
Other state agencies are also on standby to help people during and after the storm. Still to come on 7 News Sunrise, the first and maybe only debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
A very full 90 minutes. We'll take a look. Coming up, 5:38.
We rely on our partners at Ferguson to make sure everything runs smoothly, from product selection to finished project.
Shop the best selection of brands like Jen Air at your local Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery.
Time now for your first alert weather forecast.
Welcome back, everybody. Here's a quick update on Francine this morning. Still a hurricane to start the day with wind speeds up to 90 miles per hour. It did have some trouble continuing to strengthen yesterday as after it ran into a bit of drier air, but now it looks like it will still be on track to reach close to Category 2 threshold just before landfall, but models are pushing that further east down the coastline, and now looks like Southwest Louisiana is entirely out of the track of uncertainty, which is pretty much locked in at this point, and that puts Cameron Parish under a tropical storm warning instead of a hurricane warning, and most of the impacts in our area should be fairly limited on the western side as the system struggles with drier air and higher wind shear upon making landfall. It should have it weakening pretty quickly and limit storm activity on our end, as well as most wind gusts being below 40 miles per hour. Coming up, I'll take a look at the rest of your forecast with more details on Francine in just a few minutes.
After a contentious debate, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump both claiming victory.
The candidates sparred over the economy, immigration, and reproductive rights during the 90-minute debate last night. It was riddled with personal attacks. Bree Jackson has our story.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump shaking hands before facing off on the debate stage, sparring over a top issue for many voters, the economy.
This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class.
Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
On abortion,
for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states, and I did something that nobody thought was possible.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Throughout the debate, Trump pivoted to the topic of immigration, blasting Harris for challenges at the southern border.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in.
After hearing Trump defend the insurrectionists who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, the former prosecutor painted the former president as a threat while urging Americans to reject his presidential bid.
End the chaos and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome.
Trump repeating false claims about election fraud as both candidates make their case to voters on the debate stage. Afterwards, Trump making a rare spin room appearance to tout his performance, while Vice President Harris picked up an endorsement and praise from megastar Taylor Swift. And their battle now heads from the debate stage back to the campaign trail with less than 2 months until Election Day. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
We're still tracking Francine on this Wednesday morning. Joseph is next with the absolute latest.
We'll find out what impacts, if any, the storm could have on Southwest Louisiana. It is 5:44.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Joseph Eng.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. We're taking a look at Francine's progress on this Wednesday morning. Now, it did run into some patches of dry air last night. You can see the difference on that in satellite. Most of this air further off to the west is quite dry, and some of that did get sucked into the rotation, slowing down intensification through most of yesterday evening. It did manage to at least reach maximum winds of 90 miles per hour this morning, and as of the last visit from Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircrafts, it did show signs of having a better organized eye wall, so back on track to continue that strengthening process. Most of the forecast tracks, too, are still pushing for it once again to reach Category 2 just before landfall, although then it is expected to run into problems thanks to a couple of different environmental factors. But before we get to that, these forecast tracks have been pretty consistent at shoving it further east down the coastline and are basically locked in at this point. Now, the good news for us, at least, is we're entirely now out of the cone of uncertainty for southwest Louisiana, and tropical storm warnings are now in place for Cameron Parish rather than hurricane warnings. In general, it looks like our impact should stay fairly limited as the system makes landfall and slowly works its way further inland. Now, as a look at that on the wind forecast, we could still get an edge of some larger gusts, namely those tropical storm force winds. It should be 40 to 60 miles per hour, particularly if you're in areas just southeast of the majority of our viewing area. That does include portions of Cameron too, but the vast majority of us should be looking at gusts more in the 20 to 40 mile per hour range, so well below that 60 mile per hour threshold, and certainly something that we can deal with, but you will still want to be prepared for it, and making sure you have all your loose outdoor objects secured is something that you can leave set up for the day. And we will still want to be weather aware as we go through lunchtime into this afternoon. Here's a look at Futurecast as well. We're getting some light rain in areas this morning to moderate showers, mostly further north as very, very outer bands, mostly stuff that was sloughed off of Francine by late last night, and that is pushing some larger gusts as more as we get throughout the day, but still 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, you're still only getting 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts, maybe a little bit more as you're further southeast here towards the North Island to Abbeville area, but that's really further southeast of our area at that point, even into 3 o'clock near 4, where they're starting to expect landfall on most models, much further off to the east, and we're already starting to get more of a turn to the north at that point. That could help our air dry out, so really bringing what's left of any rain chances down, and gusts are already below 20 miles per hour by tonight. And that could have us clearing out pretty nicely into tomorrow morning. So pretty quiet as far as it could be considered for being this close to the system. Between this and a barrel, this is about as close as you can get to hurricanes without actually being inside some of those more dangerous winds. That's if we hold to these models, which looks pretty likely at this point. Let's look at that in the bigger picture too. What these are expecting is a more eastern landfall near Homa to the Port Fourchon area. It does look like they will be getting some larger gusts, certainly tropical storm force around 60 miles per hour, and if it manages to strengthen enough, closer to 90 to 100 for those temporary Cat 2 strength. However, then it's going to run into some stronger wind shear and drier air, which will affect a couple of things. First of all, it is expected to keep that system weakening pretty rapidly as it moves inland. That's why most areas further inland from the coast, even in the direct path, are only seeing tropical storm warnings, maybe hurricane watches. Secondly, as it starts to pull in more drier air, that could really cut down on storm potential, especially on the western side with our breeze out of the north, so we shouldn't have to worry too much about rotating storms or any tornado threats, but we'll be keeping a close eye out. Fortunately, that also brings down rainfall total forecasts too, and there will be some increase to the tides, but storm surge isn't looking like a major threat, except for some very flood-prone areas as you keep track of your forecast today. Now on radar right now, again, we got some bands of rain moving over us already. It is still going to be an overcast and rather wet and windy day here, but for the most part, again, keeping those impacts rather limited and clearing out into Thursday. We'll keep you updated on changes throughout the day, and Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton will be in as well to give you notices periodically as needed, especially into this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Joseph. It is now 5:51, and it's been 23 years since the attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon and forever changed our lives.
2 Calcasieu Parish natives lost their lives on September 11, 2001. Kevin Wayne Yoakum was 27 when he died. The LaGrange High graduate was serving in the Navy when a plane crashed into the Pentagon, killing 124 other people. Sulphur native Russ Keene was 33 and working in the World Trade Center on that day. Both men are remembered at the 9/11 Memorial on Borderlac Drive here in Lake Charles. Additionally, the Shattuck Street overpass is named in memory of Yoakum, and Sulphur has its memorial in honor of Keene. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in the attacks on this day 23 years ago. Still to come on 7 News Sunrise, Francine won't stop high school football in Southwest Louisiana.
We'll get a look at our game of the week right after the break. It's 5:52.
Over the weekend, we held voting for our Week 1 Touchdown Live Game of the Week, and as voted on by you after receiving 36% of the votes, the Pickering Red Devils are our Week 1 Team of the Week, and yesterday I was able to catch up with Coach Daugherty out in Pickering. So, Coach, you guys got your first win since 2020, your first win as a head coach here at Pickering, beat Gaydon 13-12. Just talk about what Friday night was like for you guys.
It was very special for us, to come out and get that win, and it was a hard-fought victory. It was bad field conditions for both teams, so, it wasn't ideal field conditions, so it made that, even harder for us. So we took the lead early. We went at halftime, 7-0 lead. It rained on us, and we couldn't get things going. We had some backfires because of that, but, we fought back. They got the lead in the third quarter. They were up 12-7, and so, where they could have hung their head and gave up, saying to themselves, oh, here we go again, they did something that I haven't seen them do before, and that was dig deep and come back and finish the game and get a score, and we ended up holding on 13-12.
like I said, first win since 2020. So for every kid behind us right there, that's their first win as a Pickering Red Devil. So what was the kind of reaction after the game? What was it like for all of them experiencing that?
Well, I think it didn't quite hit them until that buzzer went off, and I really didn't smile or anything till I actually started to walk out there toward the end zone and talk to the guys, and then they got me with the ice bath, which I didn't mind that one bit. It was very awesome, very great experience for the school and these kids. They worked hard, they deserved that. And the way we won, it wasn't easy, and I just like the fact that they dug in and kept fighting for that.
Once again, the Pickering Red Devils, your Touchdown Live Week 1 Team of the Week after their 13-12 win over Gayda, their first win since 2020. Coach, congratulations. Best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
The Red Devils will take on Montgomery on Friday night.
And here's a quick recap of your forecast this morning. We're watching Francine's progress further off to the south as we're just getting some light rain in pockets this morning. It is on track to land more in further southeast Louisiana for a landfall later this afternoon to evening. And it looks like impacts locally will be pretty minimal. Most wind gusts well below 40 to 60 miles per hour. And we should be seeing less rainfall too as it shifts to more of a northern breeze later in the day, helping to keep it a little bit drier. Still, we could see some breezy conditions, and it will be at least some tidal concerns near the coast. We'll be right back after the break. You're watching 7 News Sunrise, KPLC.
Cute. It doesn't fit you. Just think of all your accomplishments. Like the time you almost put the star-shaped block in the star-shaped hole. You've got more going on than just cute. And your clothes prove it. Carter's.
Sponsored by Lake Charles Memorial Health System, covering the news for Southwest Louisiana. This is 7 News Sunrise.
Good Wednesday morning and welcome to 7 News Sunrise at 6 o'clock on the September 11th. I'm Rhonda Kitchens.
I'm John Bridges. Good morning. It's a first alert weather day as we continue to track Hurricane Francine. Let's go to meteorologist Joseph Ank with the latest. Joseph?
Absolutely, John. And right now we've got the latest on Hurricane Francine this morning. As of last night, it had not gained too much strength and was struggling with some drier air. But this morning it did manage to reach around the 90 mile per hour maximum wind mark and is keeping its hurricane status. Furthermore, the last visit from Hurricane Hunter aircraft did show that the eye wall was showing a little bit more organization there, so it does expect it to resume its strengthening process today for what little time it has left before making landfall. Now, as for those forecast tracks, those are still holding pretty solidly for a more southeast Louisiana landfall and still expecting it to just reach Category 2 before it does actually move on land there. Now, these forecast tracks have been fairly consistent over the last couple runs and are basically locked in at this point, which puts the entirety of southwest Louisiana out of the cone of uncertainty. Those hurricane warnings being dropped down to tropical storm warnings for the Cameron coastline. And in general, looks like our impacts will be about as limited as they can be while we still have this close proximity to the system. Now, as for what we're expecting locally, those wind gusts are certainly a little bit easier to estimate now that we have a clear idea of where the system is going. Now, you could still see some tropical storm force gusts around 40 to 60 miles per hour if you're further southeast of our area just a little bit. That does include some portions of Cameron. Right along the coastline there is where you might feel that. But for most of us, even along Cameron, it looks like more 20 to 40 mile per hour gusts, and a lot of those are going to be more out of the northeast and north throughout the day, so pushing some drier air rather than fueling continued heavy rainfall. And we are getting some of that this morning, light to moderate steady showers from our northern areas, and more bands will try to sweep over us during the day. But as the system tries to make landfall later in the afternoon, it looks like it'll run into some drier air and stronger wind shear, which could limit storm activity on our side and keep those wind gusts very manageable. Coming up, I'll take a look at the rest of your forecast in detail with more stuff on Francine for this evening in just a few minutes. More stuff.
All right, thanks, Joseph. 6:02 now. Hackberry residents are no longer under a mandatory evacuation order.
The shift in the track of Francine has lessened the threat there, leading to a voluntary evacuation in Hackberry. Now, the rest of the parish, Cameron, still under a mandatory evacuation. Officials there say you could have a continued threat of high winds, heavy rainfall, and flooding. Calcasieu Parish emergency officials say they're scaling back.
Well, it looks like we've dodged impacts from Francine. They're going to continue to monitor the situation.
We know how these things go. It could always change, but they feel very confident about this track. So where does that place us? We want to you finish this through until it has passed us.
Schools across southwest Louisiana remain closed today in Calcasieu Parish. That includes all public, charter, and private schools. Same story today in Allen, Beauregard, Jeff Davis, and Vernon parishes. Cameron Parish schools are closed for the rest of the week. McNeese and Tooele will also be closed today. New from overnight, the White House approving an emergency declaration requested by Governor Jeff Landry. The governor says the federal assistance will be pivotal to save lives and property. In the letter sent to President Biden, Landry requested aid for debris removal and emergency protective measures, along with extra help from the U.S. Coast Guard, Civil Air Patrol, and other agencies.
The governor's holding another meeting at the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness this morning. It may be the last pre-storm news conference on Francine at 11:30 this morning. We'll have coverage for you throughout the day here on KPLC and on the 7 News mobile app. As Francine continues to grow in the warm waters of the Gulf, New Orleans is a potential target for landfall later today.
Jay Gray is in New Orleans with the latest on conditions and final preparations there.
Coastal communities in Texas filling with water. Francine dumping heavy rain as it moves just off the shoreline, taking aim at South Louisiana.
It's crucial that all of us take this storm very seriously and begin our preparations immediately.
Hundreds of thousands in the strike zone, lining up for gas, stocking up on food and water.
Just so we can make sure that we have things to eat in case the electricity goes out where we can't cook.
Others packing and piling sandbags, preparing for what could be a foot of rain or more.
Take nothing like this lightly. You have to be prepared for everything that's going to happen.
Floodgates across the region locked in place. The extremely hot waters of the Gulf like rocket fuel for the storm. Forecasters warning it will continue to intensify as it rushes toward the coast. Right now, New Orleans, a potential target for landfall.
Now, again, is the time to finalize your storm plans and to prepare, not only for your families, also looking out for your neighbors.
That time, though, quickly running out. Francine, now, just hours away.
Evacuation orders are in place in several coastal parishes. Shelters are open in Orleans Parish and at least 3 others in the region. In other news this morning, the woman whose 4-year-old child was found dead in the water behind the Vinton Welcome Center in July enters her plea in court.
Aaliyah Jack was indicted last week on 2 charges, second-degree murder and cruelty to a juvenile. She appeared in court on closed-circuit TV from jail, entering a not guilty plea on the charges. Jack's other child, a 1-year-old boy, was found alive, crawling on the shoulder of I-10. He was rescued by a truck driver. A pretrial conference is set for January 6th. Next, babies born struggling to breathe, needing surgery right after birth and throughout their lives.
Now a new procedure is helping to fix the problem without open heart surgery. The story next in today's health headlines. It is 6:07. You're watching 7 News Sunrise on KPLC.
How far did Bernie Moreno go to cover his tracks? He shredded evidence, a fact he doesn't deny. Moreno was sued for stealing his employees' pay, money they earned working overtime. Moreno was even sued for firing a single mom. Faced with multiple lawsuits, Moreno shredded key evidence. And after he finally admitted it, a jury ordered him to pay nearly $500,000. We can't trust Bernie Moreno. Win Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Are you ready?
Hulu on Disney Plus is now available. Ta-da! With plans starting at just $9.99 a month.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, new friend?
We're about to go on a little adventure together.
I think we just found our new home.
You're gonna love this.
Your favorites from Hulu and Disney Plus.
This is a destination spot. So are you in?
Yeah. Together like never before.
We have everything we need.
This is the greatest moment of my entire life.
Now for Disney Bundle subscribers, Hulu on Disney Plus is here.
Time now for your first alert weather forecast.
Welcome back, everybody. Here's a quick update on Francine this morning. Still managing to gain a little bit of strength overnight and will continue to do so throughout the day as it prepares for a landfall later this afternoon to evening. More in southeast Louisiana. Could hit Category 2 just before then, but tracks have it far enough away from our region that the entirety of southwest Louisiana is out of that cone of uncertainty. Hurricane warnings have been dropped down to tropical storm warnings for all of Cameron Parish, and with us on the west side of the system, it looks like we'll see as little impact as we possibly can while being this close. Most winds will be below the 40-mile-per-hour threshold, and it looks like it'll help to keep rain potential limited as well. Coming up, I'll take another look at the rest of Francine's details in just a few minutes.
Some babies are born with a congenital heart defect. It's actually a combination of 4 different heart conditions. For decades, these children would face open heart surgery again and again, even after they have grown up. But now a new procedure is offering new hope.
I've been inside the hospital, ever since I was like I was born.
Amanda Tillman was diagnosed at birth with tetralogy of Fallot,
a congenital heart defect that impacts normal blood flow to the heart.
I had surgery right before I started kindergarten.
Almost 30 years later, Amanda became exhausted and had trouble keeping up with the demands of being a mother, a wife, and as a nurse. When she heard her heartbeat, she knew something was wrong.
It was like a whoosh, 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 whoosh instead of the lub-dub.
Pediatric cardiologist Robert English is using a new minimally invasive procedure to replace the leaky pulmonary valve,
which we can use in those patients that have a severely enlarged pathway to the lungs.
The Harmony valve is inserted through a catheter in the groin and snaked up through the body to the heart.
The Harmony valve is, I would say it's kind of shaped like a dumbbell. It's wider on either end and narrower in the middle.
Giving patients like Amanda a less risky option to repair their valve.
It's a game changer having 1 or 2 heart surgeries in your lifetime versus 4 or 5. It makes a really big difference as well.
I could feel a difference with my heart like the same day.
Now Amanda feels like she can be the wife, mother, and nurse she wants to be.
Dr. English says roughly 75% of his patients who were only offered open heart surgery are now eligible for the less invasive Harmony valve. Still to come on 7 News Sunrise, it's one of the leading causes of death among people of all ages. We'll tell you about an event happening here in Southwest Louisiana for suicide awareness and prevention. And meteorologist Joseph Fink will have an update on Hurricane Francine. Here's a live look at Holly Beach this morning. We'll check conditions there coming up in our 6:30 half hour. It is 6:13. Good morning, Southwest Louisiana. Time to rise and shine.
Hold on. This is not dairy? Wait, whoa. How is it so creamy?
It is so creamy.
Whoa!
Wow.
So creamy.
Woo!
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Joseph Fink.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. We're tracking Francine's progress on this Wednesday morning. Now, by late last night, the system hadn't managed to gain too much strength despite reaching hurricane status and was even running into some drier air, really slowing down its potential to strengthen, but it did manage to gain at least a little overnight. Maximum winds this morning up to 90 miles per hour, and despite slowing down, it does look like the eye wall is showing some more signs of reorganizing both both on radar and by the last investigation of the Air Force Hurricane Hunter planes early this morning. So, latest tracks do have it resuming that strengthening progress, even if it's really running out of time to do so. Tracks are still pushing for a southeast Louisiana landfall and a little bit later, more like the late afternoon to evening hours, before which it still seems likely to just hit Category 2 status before then rapidly losing strength as it moves on shore. Now, where this landfall is going to be seems to still be leaning further east down the coast with each iteration, but it is pretty locked in at this point. Not a whole lot of room left for change, though we are still keeping an eye out for any small potential of rapid intensification. But southwest Louisiana entirely outside the cone of uncertainty, and that hurricane warning is now down to a tropical storm warning for the entirety of the Cameron coastline. In general, it looks like our impacts are going to be pretty limited, or as limited as they can be with us still this close to the system, but being on the western side certainly helps. Now, we have a better idea of what winds we're likely to experience now that forecasters are so confident on the landfall area. So that means that we still could see a few gusts in that 40 to 60 mile per hour range, tropical storm force winds. But to do that, you'd really have to get further southeast of our area, really pushing it down the coastline in Cameron, and you might not even see it there. Most of our area is going to be more comfortably sitting in the 20 to 40 mile per hour gust zone, and I think it'll be well below 40 for the vast majority of the day here, but we still want to be prepared for higher gusts in the event that they do happen. It'll certainly help as well to have more northern influence on this side of the system, keeping the air slightly drier, so we won't have as much to worry about with heavy rainfall, and there will still be some tidal concerns near the coast, but major storm surge is not really a factor at this point. Here's a look at that on Futurecast again, getting some bands of rain from more northern areas this morning, but let's see how those winds pick up throughout the day, 10 to 12 o'clock here, and only seeing a few pushing 25 to 30, and that's really if you get further off to the southeast in the Abbeville to North Island area. Lafayette might end up being in that zone too, especially a little bit later into the afternoon and evening. Here's closer to where they're expecting landfall on some models, and still only pushing some gusts near 30 miles per hour, mostly northeast. By the evening, you already have some of those models turning the breeze to more out of the north, and that will help our air dry out at least a little bit. So again, lessening some of those heavy rainfall concerns, though our area could still see somewhere close to 3 inches in some spots. So pooling and flood-prone areas will still want to keep tabs on that. But look at this, Wednesday evening, 9 p.m., gusts already down below 20 miles per hour, so this is about as little of an impact as we could expect while coming so close to this system. That's 2 hurricanes we come this close to between this one and Beryl, but different side this time does mean easier conditions. Here's a bigger picture look at that with, again, areas further southeast Louisiana definitely expecting some of those larger gusts through lunchtime in the afternoon, anywhere in the tropical storm range, 60 miles per hour, and over 90 miles per hour for parts on that eastern side, especially if it does hit closer to a Category 2 before it makes landfall. But then it has to deal with several factors, including stronger wind shear and some drier air that should have it rapidly weakening as it moves further inland, and drier air could also mean much less storm potential on the western side here, so we shouldn't have as much to worry about in the way of rotating storms or stronger thunderstorms either, though we will still be keeping a close eye out. For now, some steady rain this morning will definitely be around throughout the day here, but for the most part, those impacts again are expected to be very limited to almost no impact for some of our area. You still want to be prepared in case we do get some larger gusts that may well yet result in a few power outages, so just make sure you're still following your tropical storm plans, and this system won't take too long to be out of our hair. Meteorologist Chief Wade Hampton will be in later this morning to give you periodic updates as needed, especially during the back half of the day.
This Saturday, hundreds of people will gather at Burton Coliseum to address a topic many people are afraid to talk about, and that's suicide prevention. Dr. Kevin Yautis is here this morning to talk about the annual Southwest Louisiana Out of the Darkness Walk taking place at Burton Coliseum. Dr. Yautis, thanks for coming in. This is something that's been underway for a couple of years now here in Lake Charles.
Yes, this is my 6th year with the walk. walk. And so walks like these, the Out of the Darkness walks, they're for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And they happen in cities like Lake Charles all across the United States from September through December.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the purpose behind the walk. You want people to stop and think, right?
Absolutely. So it is a fundraiser, and it helps fund programming and education right here in Southwest Louisiana. In fact, last year we were able to train over 7,000 people in Southwest Louisiana in suicide prevention. This year we're at 10,000. But the most important thing for me for the walk is that individuals come out and that they see the size of the crowd and that they realize in that moment at least that nobody is alone.
Right. And who are you asking to take part in the walk?
So as far as I know, this is the largest mental health event in Southwest Louisiana. So we're asking anyone with behavioral health, who works in behavioral health, mental health, interested in working with suicide prevention to come out and support. And it's easy to register. Registration is free. You can go to afsp.org/SWLA.
All right, and we've got that web address up on the screen. Is there any deadline to sign up for the walk?
There is. The registration will close on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock.
All right, very good. Why is this important for folks to take part in a walk like this? Of course, you do collect change, and there's some fundraising going on, but basically it's to make people stop and think. Huh?
Absolutely. So suicide prevention is something that people don't talk about. We don't talk about mental health either. And so what happens in the name of the walk, Out of the Darkness, alludes to this, is the fact that when somebody is struggling with their own mental health, they think they're alone because we're not talking about it enough. So this is one opportunity once a year for all 5 parishes to come together and support your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues with mental health.
It's hard for a lot of people to, if not most people, to understand how suicide even happens. What do you tell folks, maybe surviving family members?
Well, when someone dies by suicide, people want to they want to know why, and they want one factor, one answer, but it doesn't work that way. So there are always multiple factors that go into why someone may take their own life. People who die by suicide, research has shown again and again that mental health does play into it. So that's also one of the reasons that we believe this is the largest mental health event in Southwest Louisiana.
All right, Dr. Kevin Yardis, thanks for coming in. Let's talk about it once again. It's the walk taking place, Out of the Darkness walk, taking place this Saturday. Registration at 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock is when the walk starts inside the Burton Coliseum, so you'll be cool if it's warm. Huh? If you'd like more information, go to afsp.org/SWLA. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And still ahead this morning on 7 News Sunrise, we'll talk about the effects of social media on youth. It's 6:23. Attorneys General for 42 states signed a letter to Congress demanding a Surgeon General warning label on social media apps.
They say the algorithm-driven social media platforms threaten the safety of young adults and feed the mental health crisis. Several states are already taking legal action against several social media companies, but the attorneys general say more action needs to be done, like adding a warning label, which requires congressional approval.
Check this out. A North Dakota farmer decided to go big with his marriage proposal. Justin Lehman used precision planting technology to write the words, "Marry me," into one of his soybean fields. He planted back in May, but had to wait until now for the words to, of course, show up. Justin had a pilot friend take him and his fiancée on an aerial crop tour. That's when he popped the question to Haley. Haley says Justin did well, and with the ring and the proposal, the couple is planning to get married next summer. Congratulations to them. A unique way of proposing.
He has better handwriting and crops than I do on paper.
Yeah, I would think it'd be easier to cut it down the right shape than to plant it ahead of time. That's a lot of extra effort. But looking at your forecast this morning, we're still tracking Francine's progress further off to the south, and it does look like it's pretty locked in for a southeast Louisiana landfall later this afternoon to this evening. Impacts here in southwest Louisiana should be pretty minimal, though it will be an overcast, breezy, and rather rainy day for some spots. We're not looking at any gusts over 40 miles per hour, except maybe a few spots much further off to the southeast. We'll be right back after the break. You're watching 7 News Sunrise on KPLC.
Dick Levy Trucking is looking for experienced drivers, and with so much to offer like our industry-leading pay and miles, it's never been a better time to join us. From our in-house support team to our award-winning service, our drivers stay for the long haul. We offer a full benefits package that includes a generous sign-on bonus. We know you by name, not a truck number. That's why at Dick Levy Trucking, we don't hire drivers, we hire family. Visit dicklevytrucking.com to apply today.
Sponsored by Lake Charles Memorial Health System. Covering the news for Southwest Louisiana. This is 7 News Sunrise.
Good morning. Welcome to Sunrise at 6:30 on this Wednesday morning, September 11th. I'm John Bridges.
And I'm Rhonda Kitchens. Meteorologist Joseph Ank is standing by with the first look at our first alert forecast. Joseph?
That's absolutely right, Rhonda. And this morning, we're keeping you up to date on Hurricane Francine's progress. Now, overnight, it did manage to gain a little bit of strength. You're looking at maximum wind speeds this morning up to 90 miles per hour. It ran into some dry air yesterday evening, and that definitely slowed it down. But as of estimates this morning, it is expected to resume that process for what little time it has left before landfall. Still expecting it to just hit Cat 2 before making landfall late this afternoon to the evening hours. and forecasts are still pushing for a southeast Louisiana landfall closer to Port Fourchon for most models that we're seeing here, and then rapidly losing strength as it moves inland due to a couple of factors. But the entirety of southwest Louisiana is pretty much out of this cone of uncertainty, and those hurricane warnings for the Cameron coast have been dropped down to tropical storm warnings. And the majority of our area on the western side of the system here should see pretty minimal impacts if it does follow on track. A much better idea now of what winds we're looking at. Now, you might still see some of those tropical storm force gusts much further off to the southeast, but this too may even slide just a little bit further out of range, so you'd really have to be pretty far down the Cameron coastline if you wanted to see some of those larger gusts. Most of us are looking at closer to 20 to 40 miles per hour here, and that's definitely more manageable and would even be a good bit lower than that for some areas, as we'll be dealing with certainly overcast skies and the occasional rain bands moving through. Storm activity, though, on this side of the system could be kept to a minimum, especially as it starts to pull in some drier air a little bit closer to landfall. So while we'll be keeping an eye out, it looks like we'll have less to worry about in the way of any severe storms popping up, especially with more of a wind out of the north. But while it will be gusty and rainy, you will still want to keep an eye on your forecast for any flooding concerns that may pop up with either the rain or the increased tide, which will still be a factor to some degree. Coming up, I'll take a look at your forecast for the rest of the week, but more details on Francine in just a few minutes.
Francine continues its course towards the Louisiana coast this morning after strengthening overnight into a strong Category 1 storm.
This morning, all of Cameron Parish, except for Hackberry, remains under a mandatory evacuation order. KPLC's Devin DeStefano is in Holly Beach this morning. Devin, what do conditions look like down there?
Yeah, Rhonda and John, as you mentioned, everywhere in Cameron Parish is under mandatory evacuation except Hackberry. Coming in early this morning, we didn't see anybody out and about. Still, very dark here. As you can see behind me, the ocean is starting to get a little bit more active. The wind was picking up just moments ago. We've seen one police officer kind of driving around surveying the area. We're expecting things to kind of pick up over the next couple hours. Right now, it remains pretty calm. Still, no signs of anybody here on the beach. As we continue to walk around, we haven't seen anybody, but we'll make sure to continue to keep you guys updated throughout the morning. Rhonda and John, I'm going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right. Thank you, Devin. It's dark out there, isn't it? All right, school closures this morning. Pretty much every school closed here in southwest Louisiana as we keep track of the storm. That includes public, private, and charter schools. There's also no class today in Jeff Davis Parish, and also all of the colleges, McNeese and Sewella, are closed as well today. There's a voluntary evacuation order for residents in low-lying areas of Jeff Davis Parish.
Several residents say they're not concerned about Francine, but others say they're worried about the possibility of power outages.
The only thing that I'm worried about is the lights going out because I have a 5-year-old at home, but other than that, it's not, not our first hurricane down here.
Yes.
So we're staying this time.
Residents in Lake Arthur are still making their last-minute trips to the grocery store and taking care of things around the house in preparation of Francine. Final preparations also taking place in Houma this morning.
Many people there are still recovering from Hurricane Ida. Some parts of Terrebonne Parish spent weeks without power after the storm. A number of blue tarps can still be seen on buildings as some places were slow to bounce back from the devastation of that storm more than 3 years ago now. And once again, Terrebonne stands to weather another storm with direct impacts, although this time residents say they're not as worried.
This ain't our first rodeo, man. It's one of those things that we expected every year, and when it comes around, we help each other out, and we're a community, we take care of each other, man. We expect other states to do the same for us, we do the same for other states.
Parish-wide for Terrebonne curfew will go into effect this morning at 8 a.m. Groceries and gas are already expensive enough, so the last thing you need to worry about is prices being gouged as a storm approaches.
Louisiana laws protect people against price gouging. At the governor's briefing, Attorney General Liz Murrill explained price gouging is wrong and says they'll make sure no one is taking advantage of people during the storm by overpricing goods. To file a complaint, there's a link at kplctv.com. Louisiana State Police continuing to monitor the roads as people are trying to evacuate from certain areas across the state.
All hands on deck. We're kind of in that waiting stage. We have people here. If it doesn't hit us and it hits further east, we have troopers to assist with evacuees from the east side of the state. Yeah, so if you have to travel through the area, right now the roadways are open. That could change in an instant, so keep up with social media, the radio. 511la.org is a good website. It has all the DOT closures, and we update it as soon as we have to shut down a roadway.
Governor Landry has activated the Louisiana National Guard. He says he already deployed them across the coastal parishes. Major General Thomas Frio says they have over 1 million meals and liters of water with them, along with 55,000 tarps. Other state agencies are also on standby to help people during and after the storm. Still to come on 7 News Sunrise, that's a wrap. Vice President Harris and former President Trump face off in a debate last night.
It's 6:37.
Dick Levy Trucking is looking for experienced drivers, and with so much to offer like our industry-leading pay and miles, it's never been a better time to join us. From our in-house support team to our award-winning service, our drivers stay for the long haul. We offer a full benefits package that includes a generous sign-on bonus. We know you by name, not a truck number. That's why at Dick Levy Trucking, we don't hire drivers, we hire family. Visit dicklevytrucking.com to apply today.
Are you ready?
Hulu on Disney Plus is now available. Ta-da! With plans starting at just $9.99 a month.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, new friend?
We're about to go on a little adventure together.
I think we just found our new home. You're gonna love this.
Your favorites from Hulu and Disney Plus.
This is a destination spot. So are you in?
Yeah. Together like never before.
We have everything we need.
This is the greatest moment of my entire life.
Now for Disney Bundle subscribers, Hulu on Disney Plus is here.
How far did Bernie Moreno go to cover his tracks? He shredded evidence, a fact he doesn't deny. Moreno was sued for stealing his employees' pay, money they earned working overtime. Moreno was even sued for firing a single mom. Faced with multiple lawsuits, Moreno shredded key evidence. And after he finally admitted it, a jury ordered him to pay nearly $500,000. We can't trust Bernie Moreno. Win Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Dick Levy Trucking is looking for experienced drivers, and with so much to offer like our industry-leading pay and miles, it's never been a better time to join us. From our in-house support team to our award-winning service, our drivers stay for the long haul. We offer a full benefits package that includes a generous sign-on bonus. We know you by name, not a truck number. That's why at Dick Levy Trucking, we don't hire drivers, we hire family. Visit dicklevytrucking.com to apply today.
For your first alert weather forecast.
Welcome back, everybody. Here's a quick update on Francine's progress this morning. It did manage to gain some strength overnight, despite being initially held back by a bit of drier air, and has maximum wind speeds this morning up to 90 miles per hour. Now expected to continue on its track, strengthening a little bit with what room it has left. Though it is running out of time to do so, it's still expected to hit a Cat 2 before making landfall later this afternoon to evening, and models are still pushing for a southeastern Louisiana landfall closer to Port Fourchon. Now that does keep us on the western side of the system, and now Cameron Parish has dropped from a hurricane warning to a tropical storm warning, and it looks like impacts will be relatively minimal for how close we are to the system. Coming up, I'll take a closer look at all the details for Francine in just a few minutes.
Many people in southwest Louisiana perhaps had other things on their mind last night, but that didn't stop the presidential debate from taking the stage in Philadelphia.
Did the American people learn anything new about either of the candidates? Here's Peter Zampa.
Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, a crucial 90-minute showdown here in Philadelphia in what could be the only presidential debate between these two. Policy with a side of personal attacks dominating the primetime event at the National Constitution Center.
From the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies.
There she goes again. It's a lie.
No audience, no opening statements. Two candidates making what could amount to their closing arguments as Election Day nears.
Donald Trump has no plan for you.
She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences.
In a neck-and-neck race, the economy, foreign wars, immigration, and reproductive rights among the issues in the spotlight as they consume households nationwide.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
An unexpected matchup 2 months ago, this final pitch serving as a reintroduction for both candidates, looking to define themselves and their opponent.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
Well, early voting is already underway in some states, and the next time these two campaigns will debate is October 1st. That's when the vice presidential candidates will face off. J.D. Vance against Tim Walz in New York.
Taylor Swift is endorsing Kamala Harris for president.
Swift announced the news after watching the debate last night. The Grammy Award-winning singer wrote on Instagram she was made aware of an AI version of herself falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run on his website. Swift says the dangers of misinformation brought her to the conclusion that she needed to be transparent about her plans for the election as a voter. As a result, Swift says she'll be casting her vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the presidential election. More on Francine coming from Joseph next.
And here's a live look from Holly Beach in Cameron Parish this morning. The water getting a little rough over there at 6:44. Good morning, Southwest Louisiana.
Mother? When it comes to fun, Mother's knows best. Mother's Cookies. Stop and taste the frosting.
Are you ready?
Hulu on Disney Plus is now available. With plans starting at just $9.99 a month.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, new friend?
We're about to go on a little adventure together.
I think we just found our new home. You're gonna love this.
Your favorites from Hulu and Disney Plus.
This is a destination spot. So are you in?
Yeah. Together like never before.
We have everything we need.
This is the greatest moment of my entire life.
Now for Disney Bundle subscribers, Hulu on Disney Plus is here.
Mother? When it comes to fun, Mother's knows best. Mother's Cookies. Stop and taste the frosting.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Joseph Eng.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Taking a look at your forecast on this Wednesday with the latest on Francine. Now, as of 7 o'clock, we're coming up to here, it is look like it's still keeping its strength around 90 mile per hour winds, so it did manage to strengthen a little bit overnight, but from this morning early, there hasn't been too many more developments. It was stalled on some drier air to slow down that process, but the Hurricane Hunter Air Force planes did visit it very early this morning and saw that the eye wall is starting to reorganize a little bit, so it is expected to resume that strengthening process, but it's kind of running out of time to really see any rapid intensification here. Still, models are on track to expect it at a Category 2 just before landfall, which is still predicted around the afternoon to evening hours in more southeast Louisiana. Those tracks have been consistently sliding further east over the last day or so, and now look like it'll be landing closer to Port Fourchon, at least down the coastline. Now that is pretty locked in at this point and puts the entirety of southwest Louisiana outside the cone of uncertainty, leaving Cameron Parish in a tropical storm warning rather than the hurricane warning it was in previously. In general, we should see fairly limited impacts for the day, especially being on the western side of the system and away from the western edge of that cone. As it makes landfall and eventually it loses some strength here, this wind forecast a little bit easier to pin down now that we have a pretty good idea of where the storm is going to make landfall, and even this may actually be a little bit of an overestimate, but still, areas for the southeast definitely will have a more likelihood of seeing those tropical storm force winds around 40 to 60 miles per hour, but I'd expect that further southeast of our area. For most of us, we'll only be seeing gusts around 20 to maybe 40 miles per hour. Again, those impacts really looking to be less at this time, especially if we start to get more of a northern influence to that breeze. That'll help both with the potential to get heavier rainfall and any storms that might pop up as well. And let's take a look at that here on Futurecast. We're already seeing some steady rain for areas further to the north this morning, but heading into lunchtime, gusts start to pick up a little bit, but still 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, we're only looking at 25 to maybe 30 mile per hour gusts, and even further southeast of the area to Abbeville and North Island, it's not much different. Now heading into the afternoon, close to when the expected landfall is predicted, still pushing maybe 30 mile per hour gusts out there. You could see a few slightly higher, but nothing too intense for our area. This is about as quiet as we could possibly expect being this close to a system. A fairly similar situation to Hurricane Beryl, where we're just out of the edge of seeing any real impacts that are tropical storm strength or higher, especially with this breeze turning a little bit north and the system potentially sucking up some drier air as it heads inland. That could keep both rain totals a little bit lower and storm potential to a minimum. Gusts already down below 20 miles per hour by the time we're into this evening, and it'll only continue to clear out as we get into Thursday morning here. Just look at that on the bigger picture as well, as that system makes its approach again, leading to a landfall in near Homa or Port Fourchon towards the evening hours, and they're certainly in for some higher wind gusts, pushing 60 miles per hour for tropical storm force winds, or closer to 90, maybe 100 for some spots if it does indeed hit Category 2 just before it moves further inland. But that's when it's expected to run into some stronger wind shear as well as some drier air, so that should have it weakening pretty quickly as it moves further into the coastline. and then making more of a northern turn. Now, pulling that drier air in also means a weaker storm potential for the system in general, but especially for the western side, so we shouldn't have to worry too much about any rotating storm systems, though we will, of course, still be keeping an eye out for them, as well as at least some interaction with rising tide levels, even if storm surge isn't going to be as big of a concern as it could have been. Here's a look at satellite and radar now, where again, getting some steady showers for Vernon Parish, and you're going to see off and on sprinkles throughout much of the day today, with some lighter rain mixed in and any rain bands that drift far enough north into our area. Some of that steady rain reaching portions of Cameron as well. But for the most part, it looks like it is going to be as quiet of a day as we could ask for, being in this close proximity to the system. You will still want to keep your extreme weather preparations in place, especially if we do see some larger, gustier winds out there. But Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton will be in later this morning too, and throughout the afternoon to give you updates as needed as we continue to track Francine's progress and any potential it may still have for rapid intensification, though odds do look lower at this point.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Joseph.
It's been 23 years since the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon forever changed the lives of Americans.
2 Calcasieu Parish natives lost their lives on September 11, 2001. Kevin Wayne Yoakum was 27 when he died. The LaGrange High graduate was serving in the Navy when a plane crashed into the Pentagon. Sulphur native Russ Keene was 33 and working in the World Trade Center that day. Both are remembered at the 9/11 Memorial on Borderlac Drive in Lake Charles. Additionally, the Shattuck Street overpass is named in memory of Yoakum, and Sulphur has its memorial in honor of Keene. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives in the attacks on this day 23 years ago. Today's top story, tracking Hurricane Francine, coming up.
But first, today's birthdays at 6:52. Things are looking up for residents in Hackberry this morning as they're no longer under a mandatory evacuation order.
The shift in the track of Hurricane Francine has lessened the threat in Cameron Parish, leading to a voluntary evacuation. The rest of the parish is still under mandatory evacuation due to the continued threat of high winds, heavy rainfall, and flooding. This morning we're live in Holly Beach in Cameron Parish as we continue to track Francine as it pushes toward the Louisiana coastline. You can see the waves are pretty high there in Holly Beach, but we've seen worse down there, certainly, for sure.
Well, schools across southwest Louisiana remain closed today in Calcasieu Parish. That includes all public, charter, and private schools. That also goes for Allen, Beauregard, Jeff Davis, and Vernon parishes. Cameron Parish schools are closed for the rest of the week. McNeese and Sewella will also be closed today.
The governor's holding another meeting at the state capitol this morning in the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. Officials say it could be the last pre-storm news conference on Francine. That's at 11:30 this morning. We'll bring you updates throughout the morning here on KPLC and on the 7 News mobile app. Joseph?
Well, John, we'll be continuing to monitor Francine's progress throughout the day here, but we're expecting impacts in southwest Louisiana to be fairly limited as the system seems mostly locked in this point for a southeast Louisiana landfall, mostly near Port Fourchon, and it looks like that'll be closer to the afternoon to evening hours. Here, we're expecting most wind gusts to be less than 40 miles per hour, but some more tropical storm gusts are certainly possible further off to the southeast. Heavy rainfall will also be some potential throughout the day as more bands continue to drift over us, but definitely not looking as high as it could have been. It looks like we'll be back into some pretty quiet conditions by as soon as late tonight.
We'll continue our coverage of Francine on the Fox 29 Morning Show. Just switch over to KVHP for the next 2 hours until 9 o'clock.
Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe out there. The Today Show is next here on KPLC.